When Biden stepped down and Harris took over the campaign, we did see among previous supporters of Biden, among men, a fall in support, and this is especially true for minority men.
Gender stereotypes are the assumptions and expectations we have of what men and women are like.
So I think one of the most interesting stereotypes that's been invoked in this election is quite different than those used in the past, and that's J.D. Vance's statement calling Kamala Harris a childless cat lady.
Effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made, and so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too.
And so this is really an inversion of what we typically see. So we typically see, and especially historically, women being ascribed with maternal roles and caring, emotional tendencies that are related to motherhood, and this is sort of the complete opposite of that. It is accusing her of not being feminine enough.
But I would say that this is a bit exceptional. Usually gender stereotypes are a bit more subtle, and that's also how we see it most often in the European context. So, for instance, women politicians are more often portrayed with their family, and then men politicians are more often portrayed talking about policy issues and their leadership traits. And this is in line with overall gender stereotypes.
The use of stereotypes tends to be more common for female candidates, but you can see it in either direction. But I think it's important to sort of understand what research tells us about stereotypes, which is that it doesn't necessarily lead to a negative impact for those that are being stereotyped. So in fact, there's some research in the US context that actually finds, especially at the local level, that stereotypes about women being more caring or caring more about the provision of education or other social services can actually help them to be elected and help voters to support them. In fact, research suggests it might be an effective tactic because within the US context, what researchers have found is that voters tend to actually prefer women, but that is conditional on them meeting traditional stereotypes. So the more often, if they are married and have children, then they're more likely to appeal to voters.
In the US, stereotypes of female politicians have changed for the better over the past 10 years. So people now associate them more with competence and strong leadership than before, and also they're strong on empathy and integrity, which are all characteristics that voters want in their leaders. While at the same time, men politicians, the stereotypes have deteriorated. So people now think they're power hungry, manipulative, selfish, and so there's a very cynical idea of men in politics in the US today.
You gotta see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't remember.
Our children and grandchildren will look back at this time, at the choices we are about to make, the goals we will strive for, the principles we will live by, and we need to make sure that they can be proud of us.
I think one of the biggest shifts that we've seen is the centralization of motherhood in stereotypes and what that means in terms of the political implications. So early on in Democratic politics, stereotypes around motherhood were really problematic for women and were used to exclude them from political activities, that they were meant to stay in the domestic sphere. And then we really see this shift toward using the idea that women are more caring, that they care about children, that they care about education, as a way of justifying that they will bring something different to politics. And of course, as I talked about earlier, now we still see that voters care a lot about having women that meet gender stereotypes in terms of being married and having children, but it doesn't mean that they won't support them. It means that they are more likely to support them if they meet those gendered expectation. So motherhood has sort of been a constant, but the way in which it matters for politics and the way in which those stereotypes manifest and the implications for women have changed.
It depends on the context whether stereotypes matter and whether they're beneficial for men or for women. So when stereotypically feminine issues are central to a campaign, women will tend to benefit from that. So if healthcare is a central topic, women will tend to do a little bit better. But then if a stereotypically masculine issue is central to the campaign, then like terrorism, for instance, men would generally do a little bit better.